I am Candice King. Give you a little of my history of how I got started and how I've come along and where I am today, and hopefully where I'm headed to. I was born and raised in San Fernando Valley, and my mom and dad had quarter horses in our backyard. So I was basically born on a horse. I started riding when I was 6 months old with my mom on trail rides, and as soon as I could walk, I would help Dad take care of the horses, feed, muck out, ride in the morning before school, whatever I could do. I was always passionate to ride horses, so that's for sure the very beginning. I would go every Wednesday and Friday night to the cutting arena with my dad from the time I was probably, I don't even remember, 3, 4. As soon as I could hang on a horse, I would go with my father, and I would cry if I didn't get to go with him. And so I got to do a lot of turning back. It's a lot of quick, fast movement, but I couldn't compete, and I wanted to compete, and I was doing showmanship classes, halter classes, trail classes, and by the time I was about 6, 7 years old, I still was too young to compete in the cutting horse shows. So I was getting bored, and my mom and dad talked to me and said they had a friend that also could teach me to ride English and would I like to try it. And I said yes. And they put an English saddle on. She gave me a flat lesson. I remember specifically at the light post, I was supposed to change my diagonal, and the mare tripped. I did something, I didn't know what I did. My trainer praised me that I was a natural at, learning my diagonals, and I had no clue what that was. So started riding my dad's quarter horse, his main cutting horse. She then had to learn how to jump, and that was not a natural instinct for her. So it took us a long time to get her to learn how to jump. So that was my first project, I guess, starting in the English riding of how to get a horse to jump. So I think from the very beginning, I've always had to have patience and try and get into the horse's head on what makes them tick. From there, I have many memories from Santa Barbara National Horse Show, where the ribbons were taller than we were, and competing with Meredith Michaels, Beer Bomb. She and I grew up together from the time we were about 7 years old. We used to compete in the children's jumpers, and we would do a team together at Santa Barbara National and dress up in different costumes, and it was very exciting because we always won. We were very successful there, and we ended up both having Appaloosas, and my Appaloosa became my first junior jumper. And then as we progressed through the ranks into the junior jumpers, I liked the hunters. I enjoyed the equitation, but I really loved the jumpers. That was definitely the area that I wanted to head towards. I was very lucky. My mom and dad have always been extremely supportive. We didn't always maybe have all the monetary needs to have the horses that would be at the top of the sport, but they always found a way to make it work and give me every opportunity to become as successful as I could at every level I've done. So I'm extremely grateful to them. I started with the Pee Wee Merino, and she was the one that did the Western and the English. From there, I went to Jolene Labor. She was extremely important in my start of the career. I did a lot of lessons with her. She gave me all the basic horsemanship of the English riding. From there, I went to Mousie Williams, and Mousie with being the history with Jimmy Williams, so I got a lot of foundation there. It was a great experience. And from there, I went to Sherry Rose, and she was an unbelievable horsewoman. She could make you do things that I never knew possible. It was to have lessons with her, and what she would get us to do in the arena, not just myself, but all of her students. It definitely was a distinct point in my career that I still remember today, of the things that she was able to allow me to know I could do with a horse, and especially with horses that no one else wanted. That was her big thing, was finding horses that no one else could work with, and we would take them and bring them along and get them to be extremely successful in the ring. And then from Sherry and Tommy Lowe, I went to Hap Hansen. I wanted to focus more on the jumpers, and I wanted to keep learning and expanding, and so I went to Hap Hansen, and he has, to this day, is one of my dearest friends and a huge mentor for me. He really showed me how to be sympathetic with the horse and how to win again. He just did a lot for me. I really felt like I wanted to, again, learn more. I'm always, to this day, I always feel like you never stop learning. Jimmy Williams had a saying, it's what you learn after you know it all that counts, and I live by that. And I told my mom and dad I really felt like I needed to go to the East to learn more and get that experience. And my mom and dad were fantastic. We bought a camper, and my mom moved east with me, and I became a working student with Beacon Hill. And at that time it was Frank Madden and Bill Cooney. And we found a friend to live with and took my junior jumper, Chocolate Moose, an Appaloosa, and we went east for the year. And it ended up to be a 3-year stint. Bill and Frank, they were super hunter equitation trainers. The jumpers was not their area of expertise, so they also had Joe Fargis and Conrad Homfeld teach me on their jumpers, or my jumpers. And I've tried to learn from everybody, and I think that's probably the biggest thing, is I tried to absorb from all of them. And I again, my mom and dad, they gave up parts of their life to allow me to go do this and learn from all of these brilliant people. And at the end of my junior years, I ended up, my cousins, the Dinovitzes, really wanted to support me and allow me to continue, and they became my sponsor, and I moved back to California and competed as an amateur for a year. And again, Hap Hansen helped me. And I had an amateur rider approach me, and I became a professional at 19. And my cousins, we bought horses from Gerhard Etter, who I had met through Bill and Frank. They would take me to Europe to be a demonstrator in their American clinics. So I got to meet Gerhard Etter and travel to Europe as a junior and get to compete there and go on buying trips just with Gerhard and myself. That was another great experience of driving from Switzerland all the way up to Sweden and back down to Austria, to Italy, and getting on a horse in a cornfield with a big fat snaffle and a Steuben saddle, and I had not a lot of control, but again, I learned a lot just by doing. So we were fortunate enough, Gerhard had some nice young horses that my cousins we invested in, and they built Rancho del Puma. And Hugh Burney gave me a lot of advice and a lot of help. And Linda Allen did. She also was somebody I really had turned to and has helped me along the way. So I had a lot of success at a young age there. It all kind of snowballed the right way. I went to the World Cup finals. I had a successful World Cup finals at 21 years old. I was a little nervous, obviously, going in the first day. The jumps were as big as me. And I had Woola. She was about 15, pushing 15, two-hand Dutch mare, a lot of blood, but a huge heart. And that was the year that Milton won in Gothenburg, Sweden. And I remember the first day, I remember walking the course, and it was a speed class, and I came around, we were walking the course, Hap and I. He came to support me and teach me. And there were double vertical planks. And I remember just lightly touching one to see how light it was, and the whole thing fell. And I went in there and I had 2 down. I overrode her. I was a little nervous, so I had 2 down. The next day in the jump off class, I had 1 down. And the final day, to this day, I don't know if I've ever jumped that big of jumps on such a little horse. But I ended up being cleared the first round and one down the second round. And Milton was the only one double clear. There were only 3 of us with a clear and a 4, and I ended up second that day. And I ended up 10th overall. So that was quite exciting at such a young age. I wanted to be East again, I knew that. And so I kind of stumbled my way and found some jobs riding for people and grooming, whatever I had to do to make a living and pay the bills. And I'd met my husband, who at the time we were dating. He was traveling east, doing in-gate, so I had a couple sale horses, and I packed up and went on the road to see where I could go. I then was hired by Frank Gombelet for the Lufkin family. They just bought a farm in Millbrook, New York. So I went to work for them for several years as their rider. And that went well. I had some very nice young horses, and they had a horse when I started there that they had bought from Marcus Fuchs for Mrs. Lufkin. And when I got there, they were having issues that he would run out of the arena with her. He would jump a jump or two and run out of the arena. And she loved to go on trail rides, and he would put her in the dirt on the trail rides and gallop home. And they were going to send him back, and I asked if I could work with him. So I spent a lot of time. I remember going out on trail rides. He didn't like the water or the Liverpool. It was a big issue, not a small issue. And I would go out in the woods in North Carolina and Southern Pines through the sand and the rivers and the ponds and all of that. And I would tell Gareth, who worked for me at the time, he used to work for David Broom, if I don't come back in 3 hours, come looking. And he would try and roll me off and run under trees. But I just took a long time with him. And he ended up jumping clear at the Invitational and the Gold Cup and put me in the top 10 on the computer list again. And then from there, I went on my own again. So I bought a horse from Max Fanninger, who is Margie Ingles' resource in Europe. And we were looking for an amateur jumper for a customer of mine. But I had an owner who didn't have a lot of money, but he had some money, and he wanted a Grand Prix horse for me. So we were trying this horse, a 12-year-old that came out for my customer to try, and he was too strong for her. But Max told me to get on him and jump him, and I didn't realize he was a stallion until I got off of him, but I got on with him very well, and he was very reasonably priced. And he was already 12, he had done Grand Prix at national shows, and we ended up buying him. And that horse was Johnny M. And he took me 10 years later to Gothenburg, Sweden again, to the World Cup finals, where I was 5th overall. I was the highest placed American and lady rider. And so it was 10 years that I hadn't been to Europe, and it was quite an exciting time to be back in there again. And I had just had my daughter, Alex King, about a year before that. She was about a year old when we went. So, you know, it's been a great ride. It's been a lot of work and a lot of ups and downs. And from there, I've had some very good owners and supporters. And at this time, I now have the Gumberg family, which is the farm we are at, and Ahmed Alali, who he's been a customer of mine for almost 10 years. And he owns my one-horse Toronto, and he has a couple of amateur owner jumpers. And the Gumbergs, Jill and Amanda, compete, and our goal is to buy young horses and bring them along and have them for sale, but bring them along for them to ride and myself. So the oldest group of my horses were 10 last year that I've been bringing along. About 4 years ago, I kind of stepped out of the big ring, bought young horses, have been spending a lot of time in the 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old classes, moving them up into the open classes, into the Grand Prix, and last year they were 10 years old. And the 3 that I had, one is Skara Glenn's Davos, and I was the alternate for the World Equestrian Games in Lexington, Kentucky last year with him. My second one was Toronto. He's a very good Grand Prix horse. I hope to gear him towards 2012. And I've had him since he was 5, and he is now 11. My third one is now named H&H Rebozo, who made the top 4 with Rodrigo in the World Equestrian Games. So it was well worth sitting out of the Grand Prix ring to bring along nice young horses and have that success. And that's what I'm trying to do again, is I have my Scar Glens Davos and Toronto, but I have a couple of nice 9 and 8, 7-year-old, 6-year-old, and that's what I'm doing at the moment, is bringing along young horses to the international level or the junior amateur level. And I'm very fortunate my owners are very patient and believe in doing it the horseman way and not pushing them. They'd rather me double clean than be the fastest 4-faulter and try and win the class. So it's been really nice to bring along young horses that we've also sold some junior amateur ones, and so I get a lot of pleasure out of that. I love riding. I love spending time with the horses. My goal is 2012 Olympic Games in London. I would love to make the Pan American team this year, but I am not going to show my horses to put myself high enough on the computer list to make Europe. So I don't think that I will be high enough on the computer list to make the Pan Ams, because I won't risk jumping my horses to get on that computer list. That's not a priority to me. I also am on some committees and a board of director of the U.S. Hunter Jumper Association, and I really, as time goes on, would like to give back to the sports by teaching, judging, mentoring, whatever I can do to give back, because it's been very supportive to me, this industry.
Give me a little spin, Al.
Okay. Oh. Oh. Get back. 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 Oh.